You stood your ground, you didn't shout back. You didn't plot revenge, you just kept building, you kept growing, and because of that you won. But here's the irony. When you stop playing the game they wanted you to lose, they call it cheating. When you rise above the trap, they accuse you of arrogance. And when you succeed quietly, their whispers grow loud with jealousy. Let me tell you something powerful. Outsmarting your enemies doesn't always look like battle. Sometimes it looks like silence, like peace, like discipline, like not showing up to the chaos they planned for you. A group once laughed behind your back. Now they watch in silence, hoping for your downfall. Rising above envy and opposition is one of the most overlooked signs of true growth and maturity. When you begin to succeed not just outwardly in your achievements, but inwardly in your peace and clarity, it will naturally trigger a response in others. Not everyone claps when you win. Not everyone celebrates your progress, and in many cases, those who feel closest to you can feel the most threatened when you begin to operate beyond their expectations. Envy, at its root, is not just hatred, it is a form of comparison that turns sour. The people who envy you are often the ones who secretly measured their value against yours. And when you outgrow a narrative they had assigned to you, the underdog, the forgettable one, the quiet one, the broken one, they feel betrayed. Not because you did anything wrong, but because you proved their internal version of you to be false. That disruption of perception causes discomfort. Instead of examining their own growth, they begin targeting yours. Opposition can be loud, but envy is quiet at first. It hides behind sarcasm, backhanded compliments, or subtle distance. It comes in the form of questioning your motives, downplaying your success, or mocking your process. People may say things like, "Don't forget where you came from," or "You've changed," as if growing is a crime. In reality, they are not upset at your character, they're uncomfortable with their lack of transformation. When you outsmart your enemies, it often happens without confrontation. Outsmarting them is not about arguing or proving a point. It's about doing the opposite of what they expect, continuing to move forward without responding to the noise. Many people expect you to lash out, to break down, or to fail under pressure. Outsmarting them is when you remain calm, focused, and strategic. When you refuse to meet chaos with chaos, you become unpredictable and therefore powerful. In many cases, people do not hate you for who you are, but for what you represent. You represent a mirror, a reminder of what they could be, should be, or never dared to be. Your consistency reminds them of their excuses. Your resilience exposes their lack of discipline. Your refusal to retaliate makes them question their own immaturity. They are not offended by your success, they are offended by your refusal to stay beneath them. True wisdom is knowing when to speak and when to stay silent, when to walk away and when to stand firm. Those who are driven by envy are always looking for a reaction. If you respond emotionally, they win because they pulled you down to their level. But when you respond with peace, with purpose, and with patience, you stay elevated. You let time and truth do the talking. People may lie about you, twist your story, and paint you as the villain, but the consistency of your character will outlive the noise of their rumors. One of the greatest signs of emotional and spiritual intelligence is your ability to allow people to underestimate you without correcting them. You do not need to campaign for your worth. You do not need to justify your blessings. When the fruit of your life begins to blossom, those who once mocked you will have to face the evidence. You don't have to scream to be seen. In fact, the most powerful victories are silent. As you grow, there is a critical truth to understand. Elevation reveals exposure. The higher you rise, the more visible you become. The more visible you are, the more criticism, jealousy, and false narratives may come. But here's the key: elevation also separates. Just like sediment settles in water, your rise will naturally cause some relationships, alliances, and circles to fall away. Don't chase what God is removing. Don't explain yourself to what was meant to misunderstand you. Your power lies in understanding the difference between being attacked and being targeted. An attack may be random, but being targeted is intentional. It means your presence disrupted something. You became a threat to comfort zones, insecurities, and mediocrity. But that's not your problem to solve. You are not responsible for their discomfort. You are responsible for your purpose. Every move you make toward excellence will stir resistance. But resistance is not a sign to stop, its confirmation that you're moving. When your presence starts to disturb patterns, shake strongholds, and trigger envy, don't retreat. Stay the course, keep building, keep elevating, and remember, those who operate in the dark will always try to pull light into the shadows. But light doesn't argue with darkness, it just shines. When you are unfairly targeted, falsely accused, or misunderstood despite your integrity, the most difficult thing to maintain is peace. But this is also where the strongest evidence of divine assurance begins to show. When you choose not to retaliate, not to clear your name in every room, and not to lose sleep over false narratives, it becomes clear that your strength is not drawn from human validation, it's grounded in something deeper. God does not operate in the realm of urgency, He operates in truth, and truth takes time. That's why divine justice doesn't always show up immediately, but it always arrives right on time. Faith in that process is what separates the reactive from the resolute. Being targeted often makes you question your worth. You begin to wonder if you should have explained yourself better, defended your reputation more aggressively, or retaliated to show your strength. But that's the trap. The goal of the enemy is not just to attack your character, but to provoke your reaction. If you allow yourself to be pulled into every conflict, you're no longer walking in divine purpose, you're walking in human emotion. And human emotion, while real and valid, is often short-sighted. But when you are led by faith, you don't react, you respond. You move with clarity, not chaos. That's how divine assurance manifests. You don't just trust God when it's quiet, you trust Him when you're being falsely accused, when lies spread faster than truth, and when silence feels unfair. The reality is, not everyone who targets you is your enemy. Some are simply insecure observers who cannot reconcile your growth with their stagnation. But when those people become aggressive, when their envy turns into action, you are forced into a spiritual crossroads. Will you fight their fire with fire, or will you trust that your protection comes from something higher? God doesn't just defend you in public, He strengthens you in private. When you walk through unjust storms and still have peace, that's not luck. That's divine reinforcement. The people who try to break you end up confused when you keep showing up whole. There is a kind of favor that surrounds those who walk in divine alignment. It cannot be explained, only observed. You'll notice this when people go out of their way to help you, doors open without your effort, and situations that were designed to trap you end up blessing you instead. That's not manipulation or strategy, that's God doing what only He can do, flipping the script. What was meant to harm you becomes your testimony. What was meant to expose you only elevates you. What was planned to destroy you becomes the very platform God uses to display your endurance. Divine assurance isn't just comfort, it's clarity. It tells you you are covered even when you are cornered. Faith is often tested the most not when everything is falling apart, but when it feels like injustice is winning. When the liars look like leaders and the manipulators are celebrated while the honest are isolated, it can feel like the system is broken. But here's the truth. God does not measure outcomes the way humans do. Where man looks at the surface, God examines the seed. If you sow integrity, you will reap legacy, but not always on your schedule. That's why unshakable faith is not a feeling. It's a decision to trust in a bigger picture you cannot yet see. It is choosing to believe that being right with God matters more than being right in the eyes of people. Another key sign of divine assurance is the ability to move forward while being watched, criticized, or underestimated. You stop waiting for apologies, closures, or explanations, because your validation doesn't come from people, it comes from purpose. There is nothing more dangerous to your enemies than someone who walks in quiet confidence. That's the kind of person who cannot be manipulated, cannot be baited into distraction, and cannot be broken by false narratives. Why? Because they know who goes before them and who stands behind them. When you are divinely backed, even silence becomes a strategy. Even losses become lessons, and even betrayal becomes redirection. That's what makes faith unshakable, not that it avoids pain or conflict, but that it rises in spite of it. You do not need a stage to prove your worth, nor a crowd to echo your value. When God is your defender, He speaks in outcomes, not arguments. And when His favor surrounds you, no attack can stick. It may land, but it won't last. When you're walking in alignment, there comes a point when you no longer need to confront those working against you. They begin to expose themselves through their own actions. The idea that you must fight every battle or prove every betrayal is not only exhausting but spiritually unwise. Divine order does not require human micromanagement. One of the clearest signs that you're walking in truth is when your enemies begin to unravel without your involvement. It's not revenge, it's revelation. What is hidden cannot stay hidden when light enters the room. People who secretly envy you often start with subtle behaviors, withholding support, ignoring your progress, making passive-aggressive remarks, or celebrating others' achievements louder than yours. But over time, the weight of their internal conflict, admiration mixed with jealousy, begins to seep out. You'll notice it in their tone, in their silence when others celebrate you, in the discomfort they show when you're mentioned in a positive light. These are spiritual signals not to be feared, but to be discerned. Because when God starts elevating you, He also starts exposing what cannot go with you. What makes this principle so powerful is that it removes your need to watch your back. The truth is, you don't have to keep checking who's for you and who's against you. That kind of surveillance drains your peace and distracts you from your purpose. But when you operate in alignment, people disqualify themselves from your life. No confrontation necessary. Their words will contradict their actions. Their mask will slip in moments of pressure, pride, or provocation. Time will show you what you could never force with conversation. You don't have to uncover their motives. They will reveal themselves through their reactions to your growth. The exposure of enemies is rarely loud at first. In fact, it often happens subtly: a changed tone in their messages, a decrease in enthusiasm when you share good news, or a shift in energy when you enter the room. Sometimes they grow distant, and you feel the separation but can't explain it. Other times they remain close, but their loyalty has expired. You sense it in how they speak of others behind their backs, knowing that one day you could be next. The signs are always there. You just need the emotional maturity to acknowledge them without bitterness. When God is on your side, He does more than bless you. He reveals who's not meant to walk with you. This doesn't always mean someone is a villain. Sometimes people simply can't handle your calling. They can't handle your peace, your discipline, your favor, or your consistency. They struggle with your ability to stay calm under pressure or to rise after every setback. And instead of learning from you, they begin competing with you in silence, in secrecy, or even under the guise of friendship. But the truth always rises, just as oil rises above water. You don't have to shout or prove anything. Your consistency will make the dishonest uncomfortable. Another powerful aspect of this truth is that exposure brings clarity, not just about others, but about yourself. When people show their true colors, it teaches you how to set healthier boundaries. It reminds you that not everyone deserves access just because they've had history with you. Some relationships were seasonal, not eternal. Some people were meant to teach you, not walk with you. The exposure may hurt, but it also heals because it frees you from illusions, expectations, and attachments that no longer serve your journey. One of the hardest lessons in growth is accepting that loyalty cannot be assumed. Just because someone walked with you in the valley doesn't mean they'll cheer for you on the mountain. And just because someone applauded your survival doesn't mean they're prepared for your success. Sometimes people connect through pain, and when you begin to heal, they feel left behind. But you are not responsible for shrinking to maintain connection. You are responsible for evolving, even when that evolution exposes who's unwilling to grow with you. You'll know enemies are revealing themselves when you stop trying to explain your intentions and start observing reactions. Watch who claps when you win. Watch who stays silent when you speak truth. Watch who distances themselves when you stand in your power. These moments aren't setbacks, they're sacred, because what you lose in false support, you gain in clarity and divine alignment. You weren't meant to carry everyone into your next season, and you won't have to push them away, they'll walk out on their own. There are moments in life when everything feels like it's breaking at once. Friends distance themselves, opportunities dry up, your name is misunderstood, your motives are questioned, and in the quiet moments, when no one is watching, you break down. You doubt, you ask why, but even in the middle of that confusion, you wake up the next day and move forward. Maybe slowly, maybe with tears in your eyes, but you move. That's strength. Not the kind you post about, not the kind people praise, the hidden kind. The kind you didn't know you had until life forced it out of you. True strength is never loud in its arrival. It doesn't show up with flashing lights or applause. It often shows up quietly in moments of endurance, in your decision not to give up, in your willingness to try again, in your refusal to let pain define your future. Many people think strength is about never being broken, but it's the opposite. Strength is found in being broken and still choosing not to remain shattered. It's when you're surrounded by chaos and still find a way to speak peace into your own soul. That kind of strength isn't taught, it's revealed. There's something powerful about surviving what was meant to destroy you. It changes how you see yourself. Before the betrayal, before the breakdown, before the season of loss, you may have relied on outer validation to measure your worth. But after you walk through fire and realize you didn't burn, you begin to trust yourself differently. You no longer need the opinions of others to stabilize your sense of identity. You've seen what you're made of. And it's not because everything went well, it's because it didn't, and you're still standing. Sometimes God allows pressure not to punish you, but to pull strength out of you that comfort could never reach. Comfort keeps potential dormant. Adversity activates it. The strength you didn't know you had was buried underneath fear, people, pleasing, self, doubt, and trauma. But once life forced you into a corner, you discovered a resilience you never had to use before. That resilience is now your weapon. It is your memory of survival, and it will carry you through future storms with the confidence that you've already faced worse and made it through. There are seasons where your strength is not measured by what you achieve, but by what you endure. Maybe you didn't build the business yet. Maybe you didn't heal completely. Maybe you didn't resolve every conflict, but you didn't give up. That alone is strength. That's what most people never see, the daily decision to keep going. To keep showing up for your responsibilities, your family, your goals, your healing, even when no one is cheering for you. That's where champions are born, in silence, in discipline, in struggle. The people around you might not have seen your sleepless nights. They may never know how many times you fought back tears in public. They may never understand the pressure you carried while still managing to smile, serve, and support others. But you do, and that's what matters. The strength you didn't know you had has now become part of your DNA. It has redefined your limits. You used to think certain things would break you, but now you look back and realize they built you. You're stronger now because you had to be. Not because you wanted to be, but because life gave you no other option. You learned to self-soothe, to pray deeper, to protect your peace, to walk away from things that drained you, and to stand up for yourself even when your voice trembled. That was strength. Every boundary you set, every apology you didn't chase, every toxic pattern you broke, every version of yourself you buried to become more whole, all of it was evidence that you've evolved. There's strength in your silence too, in not reacting, in walking away from drama without explanation, in watching people misjudge you while you stay focused. That is emotional maturity, and it's a form of strength many underestimate. It's the kind of power that makes you unshakable. You are not easily provoked anymore. You don't chase validation like you used to. You understand now that peace is more valuable than attention, and that's a lesson only hardship can teach. Every setback you've survived has made you spiritually stronger. Every betrayal taught you discernment. Every failure gave you wisdom. That's the blessing inside the battle, not just that you made it through, but that you emerged with more depth, more patience, more clarity. And now, when storms come again, you don't panic. You pause, you breathe, because you know exactly who you are, and you know this. Whatever life throws next, there is a strength within you that is already prepared for it.